Hola chicos, en este video vamos a hablar de los verbos de cambio radical. Los verbos de cambio radical significa stem change verbs, or we like to call them boot verbs. If you recognize this, then you know what I'm getting at. Boot verbs, ¿verdad? Algunas cosas sobre estos verbos. Uno, son muy comunes. Estos son verbos que usamos mucho, ¿no? Dos, hay 4 categorías que nosotros vamos a aprender hoy. 4 categorías. 3 son verbos regulares. So what are regular verbs? Regular verbs are defined as verbs that follow the same endings. They're really regular. They have some irregularities in their stem, but they're regular. They have the same endings. Y no son tan difíciles. No son difíciles. Son fáciles. Tienes que estudiar un poco. And most of this, for most of you guys, should be a review. But if it isn't, don't worry, we'll take it slow. So vamos a empezar. La primera categoría que tenemos de los verbos de cambio radical, category number 1, is verbs that change from an E to an IE. And querer is a good example of this verb, a verb that we've seen before. This E in red is the one that's going to change. So when we conjugate this verb, and if you still have problems with conjugations, please go back to the other screencast that I gave. We see that we have these changes. We have used quiero a bunch of times this year, and we know that with this verb, we have our same endings that we've seen with ER verbs. This happens to be an ER. And what happens with this verb is los cambios, observamos los cambios solo en estas formas, only in these forms here. And what forms would that be? Those would be the yo, that would be the tú, él, ella, usted forms, and then finally the ellos, ellas, ustedes forms. Now, why does this happen? I don't know. It's just the way it is. So don't blame me. That's how Spanish is. So, tenemos estos cambios. Now, querer solo es un ejemplo de muchos otros verbos. There are a ton of verbs that do this. Querer is one of them. And vamos a mirar una lista después. Miren que la forma de nosotros y la forma de vosotros no cambian. Que no hay un cambio aquí, ¿no? They stay exactly the same way. There's nothing weird about them. So, este es un ejemplo de un verbo que cambió de E a IE. What other types of stem changes that do we have? Tenemos verbos que cambian de O a UE. O to UE stem change. Another common verb, a mastery verb, poder, to be able to, or our way to say can in Spanish, is a stem change. So if this changes to the in those forms that we talked about before to a UE, what do you think the conjugations are? Say it with me. Yo puedo. Muy bien. How about tú? Puedes. And really, you should be repeating this. It helps you. Él y usted puede. Nosotros. Muy bien. Podemos. No hay un cambio. Vosotros podéis. Don't forget that accent. Ellos y ustedes pueden. So, la práctica es importante, right? So look what we have here. Another boot situation. And our changes only take place within the boot. Okay? So bien. So I'm not going to write in all the subjects because we saw it with querer. Now, otra vez. Solo es un ejemplo. Un ejemplo de muchos otros. There are a ton of verbs that do this, that have this O to UE change. And poder is just going to be used as our example today. La próxima categoría, categoría número 3. Solo hay un verbo. There's really only one major verb that does this. It's the verb jugar. It's an U to UE. And really, it's very similar to an O to UE. It's not going to be that much different. So, el verbo jugar, if I want to say I play, what is it? Say it. Juego, ¿verdad? Everybody wants to say jugo for this. But jugo means juice. So if you say, yo jugo deportes, I juice sports. No, juego, that's better. Tú, AR verb, juegas. Él y usted, juega. Now notice, we've been dealing with some ER's verbs, so we have to make sure we remember our AR endings. Again, go back to the other screencast if you need to. Nosotros jugamos, vosotros jugáis, acento, ellos y ustedes juegan. ¿Qué tiene en común? What does it have in common? It has the boot situation. Look where our changes are. Same place as the other ones. It's an O to UE, a U to UE, but it has the same changes. Okay? So, este es un ejemplo de un verbo que cambia. Same situation, boots. Una categoría más. And this one you may or may not have seen. There are many verbs in Spanish that change just from an E to an I. So there's no two letters here, there's just this one letter, this I. And a nice verb for this is competir. What do you think competir means? If you cut the IR off. Very good, it means to compete. It has to do with sports, so it's a nice verb for us to use. If these verbs change to an E to an I, from an E to an I, what do you think the yo form is? Say it. Yo. Muy bien. Compito. How about tú? Tú? You compete too? Compites. How about ele usted? She competes. Ella? Ella? Say it. Compite. Muy bien. La forma de nosotros? Nosotros? No hay un cambio. No change there. Competimos. You all, if you're in Spain, you all compete. Ustedes, perdón, vosotros competís. Remember, this is an IR verb, so it's going to have different endings. And then ellos, they, the other team, ellos, they compete. Ellos compiten. Muy bien. So, tenemos los mismos cambios, the same sort of boot. Why are these called boot verbs? Because this thing, if you haven't gotten it yet, looks like a boot. Look, boot, situation, laces, if you want to put them there, a little tie thing, right, whatever. It's a boot verb. So estos son verbos de bota, boot verbs. Entonces, tenemos las cuatro categorías. Reviewing real quick, we have our E to IE, O to UE, U to UE, and E to I. Now, we've seen every category of verbs, AR, ER, and IR on this. Here is a list of the verbs that we are going to be responsible for. There are 20 verbs here. Hay 20 verbos. ¿Cuántos verbos sabes tú? How many of these ones do you guys know? Pause this here, take a look at these verbs, and take down the ones that you don't know and add them to flashcards, or better, to Study Blue, which is a fantastic way to study. So I would, off the top of my head, I'm looking at these and I'm thinking, I'll betcha some people don't know nevar. I'll betcha that some people are probably confused with volver. I betcha that some people maybe have a problem with pedir. Those are just off the top of my head. There's no need to rememorize the ones that you already know by heart, but the ones that you don't know, flashcards. Esto es bastante importante. This list is going to be key. Probably a good idea to take this down, although I'll probably give you a handout as well on this stuff. All right, muy bien. So follow the instructions on Edmodo to do the homework for the screencast. Muchas gracias por su atención y nos vemos en la próxima clase. Chao.